You sit there and you talk about how you want to change, how you want to do something great, how you want your life to mean something, but you won't get off the couch. You won't put down the phone. You won't wake up when the alarm goes off. You keep saying, "I'll do it tomorrow," but tomorrow becomes next week, next month, next year, until you've wasted your strength, your time, your youth. And for what? For comfort, for ease, for nothing that lasts. You think the world owes you progress without effort, results without discipline, growth without pain, but life doesn't work like that. You cannot reap a harvest from a field you never plowed. You cannot build a foundation while you're still asleep. Everything worthwhile, everything that has value, man's sweat, labor, and perseverance. And if you are not willing to give that, then don't expect to receive anything in return. Some of you are waiting for motivation to appear before you move, as if it were some wind that blows on its own. No, you move first. You act first. Discipline births motivation, not the other way around. You've got to stand up and fight your laziness as if it were an enemy of your soul, because it is. It robs you of potential, it kills your purpose, and it blinds you to what you could be if you simply refuse to quit. Stop making excuses. Stop pretending that the world is against you. The problem isn't out there. The problem is in you. You don't need another video, another book, another person to push you forward. You need to decide that you've wasted enough time. You need to take responsibility and say, "I will not live like this anymore." You've got breath in your lungs, strength in your body, and time left on the clock. Don't you dare waste it on laziness. Stand up, get to work, do what you were created to do. Most people believe motivation is the spark that lights the fire of discipline, that you have to feel inspired before you can act. But that belief is one of the greatest lies holding people back from achieving anything meaningful. Motivation is fickle. It comes and goes like the wind. It depends on emotions, circumstances, energy, and environment. Discipline, on the other hand, is solid, unshakable, rooted in decision rather than feeling. It is not waiting for the perfect mood, the perfect time, or the perfect opportunity. It is standing up, setting your face like flint, and doing what must be done whether you feel like it or not. That is why discipline must come before motivation, because if you wait for motivation, you will never begin. The truth is, motivation is a reward, not a requirement. It comes after you act, not before. When you get up early even though you are tired, when you push through the workout though your body screams to quit, when you sit down to study even when your mind wants distraction, something happens within you. A spark ignites. You start to feel a sense of purpose, a sense of progress, a sense of pride that you did what was difficult. That feeling that asterisk is motivation. It's not the starting point. It's the result of obedience to discipline. You have to earn it by pushing through resistance. Too many people sit and wait for inspiration, as though some invisible force will suddenly pick them up and carry them toward their goals. They wait for the right moment, for the perfect mindset, for some burst of enthusiasm to magically appear. But that moment never truly comes, because life doesn't hand you motivation on a silver platter. Life rewards the one who takes the first step while still afraid, tired, unsure, and unmotivated. The very act of moving forward through resistance creates the momentum that fuels motivation later on. Think of the farmer who goes out to the field before dawn. He does not feel like plowing when the ground is hard and cold. He doesn't wake up every day filled with excitement to break the soil, but he goes anyway because he knows that without plowing, there will be no planting, and without planting, there will be no harvest. His motivation doesn't come from the feeling of wanting to work. It comes from knowing what will happen if he does not. Discipline carries him where motivation cannot, and later, When he sees the first green shoots rising from the ground, motivation blooms. But it blooms asterisk after asterisk discipline, never before. You cannot trust your feelings to carry you to greatness. Feelings are deceitful. One day they tell you to conquer the world, the next they tell you to stay in bed. If your commitment rises and falls with your emotions, you'll never accomplish anything of lasting value. That's why discipline is so crucial. It is the anchor that holds you steady when the storm of apathy and laziness hits. Motivation depends on your mood. Discipline depends on your will. Motivation whispers, "Do it when you feel ready." Discipline commands, "Do it now." Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the engine that keeps running long after the spark fades. Discipline is not glamorous. It's not romantic. It doesn't give you instant satisfaction. It is repetition, consistency, sacrifice. It is doing the same hard thing again and again until the habit becomes stronger than your weakness. You go to the gym not because you feel like it, but because it's time to go. You work on your craft not because you're inspired, but because you must improve. You push through discomfort because you know comfort produces nothing of worth. Every time you act out of discipline, you train your mind to obey your will rather than your emotions. You build internal strength that no burst of motivation can match. And here's the truth most people never learn. Motivation follows movement. Action produces emotion. When you act, even when you don't want to, your brain releases chemicals, dopamine, endorphins, that create a sense of reward. Your body and mind begin to associate effort with satisfaction. Suddenly, the thing that once felt heavy begins to feel lighter. You find rhythm, you find drive, you start to crave that sense of achievement, but none of it happens unless you first take the disciplined step forward when you least want to. The great athletes, thinkers, builders, and leaders of history understood this principle. They were not carried by bursts of motivation every day. They were carried by duty, routine, and discipline. They understood that motivation is temporary, but discipline is eternal. They rose early, practiced relentlessly, endured failures, and persisted when every fiber of their being wanted to give up. And in time, that discipline created momentum. That momentum created progress. That progress brought motivation. They flipped the order that most people live by. While others waited to feel motivated before acting, they acted. And then motivation followed. Every time you rely on discipline over motivation, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. You build self-respect. You gain control over your own mind. But every time you give in to laziness and make excuses, you teach yourself that your feelings are the master and you are the servant. That is why so many people live in cycles of guilt and frustration. They start something when they feel motivated, stop when the feeling fades, then wait for another spark that never lasts. The secret is not to chase motivation, but to master discipline so completely that you can move forward even in darkness. There will be days when you wake up tired, uninspired, discouraged. Days when nothing goes right, when the results are invisible, when you question whether your effort matters. Those are the days that test what you're truly made of. Motivation will abandon you in those moments, but discipline will not. Discipline whispers, "Keep going." It tells you that faithfulness in the small things builds greatness in the unseen. It reminds you that consistency, not emotion, produces transformation. When you begin to live by discipline, something extraordinary happens. Your relationship with discomfort changes. You stop running from it. You begin to understand that pain and resistance are not enemies. They are teachers. They forge character. They sharpen focus. Every rep in the gym, every early morning, every long night of work, every sacrifice. It all molds you into someone stronger than your circumstances. Discipline doesn't just produce results. It produces identity. You become the kind of person who follows through, who finishes, who doesn't bend to weakness. And once you taste that kind of strength, you'll never want to go back to being ruled by your emotions again. But this doesn't happen by accident. You must make a deliberate choice every single day. You must decide that your actions will no longer be dictated by fleeting feelings. You must decide that the alarm clock will be obeyed, that your commitments will be honored, that your excuses will no longer have a voice. You must train your body and mind to submit to your will. That is discipline. It is not a one-time act, but a lifestyle, a covenant between you and the person you are becoming. The beginning will always be the hardest part. The first few steps of discipline feel like walking through fire. Your mind will resist, your body will protest, everything in you will scream to stop. That is the battlefield. But the moment you push through that wall, you break the power of inertia. You discover that you are capable of far more than you believe. Each victory over laziness strengthens you for the next. Soon, the same habits that once felt impossible become automatic. That's the power of consistency. It transforms struggle into stability. People often misunderstand the purpose of discipline. They think it's about restriction or punishment. But true discipline is freedom. It frees you from the chaos of indecision, the guilt of procrastination, the weakness of inconsistency. It liberates you from the tyranny of mood and impulse. When you are disciplined, you are in control. You no longer drift aimlessly. You move with direction and purpose. Motivation might give you a burst of energy, but discipline gives you ownership of your life. Motivation can start a journey, but it can't sustain one. The first few days of a new goal always feel exciting. You tell yourself you're going to change everything. But when that excitement fades, when progress feels slow, that's when most people quit. Discipline is what carries you through that dry season. It tells you that the process is more important than the feeling. It reminds you that every step forward, no matter how small, brings you closer to what you're striving for. Motivation celebrates the result, discipline celebrates the process, and yet, ironically, the more you practice discipline, the more often you feel motivated. When you wake up and follow through day after day, you start to see progress. Progress breeds motivation. You begin to crave the structure, the order, the growth. You become addicted not to laziness, but to improvement. The cycle reverses. Discipline produces action. Action produces results. Results produce motivation. And motivation strengthens discipline even further. But the first link in that chain is always discipline. Without it, the rest collapses. The world around you is filled with distractions designed to kill your discipline. Comfort calls your name. Entertainment demands your time. Procrastination whispers lies like you deserve to rest, or you can do it later. But every time you surrender to those lies, you trade future satisfaction for temporary ease. Discipline forces you to look past the moment and see the harvest ahead. It asks you to suffer a little now so that you can rejoice later. It's the difference between living for pleasure and living for purpose. Discipline is also an act of love, love for your future self. The sacrifices you make today are gifts you give to the person you will become. Every early morning, every hard choice, every ounce of effort is an investment in that future. When you skip discipline, you steal from yourself. But when you embrace it, you bless yourself with strength, peace, and accomplishment that no comfort can match. The hard truth is that you cannot build anything lasting without discipline. Not a strong body, not a successful career, not a deep relationship, not a clear mind. Everything of value requires consistency. Everything of value requires sacrifice. Discipline is the price you pay to turn potential into reality. Motivation may open the door, but discipline walks you through it. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for motivation to knock on your door. It's not coming. It never was. What's coming is resistance, temptation, and the constant pull of comfort. That's the battlefield you live on. And your only weapon is discipline, the relentless decision to do what must be done regardless of how you feel. When you master that, you no longer need motivation. You become your own motivation, because your actions themselves become proof of who you are and who you are becoming. Discipline must come before motivation because it is the foundation upon which all growth, strength, and progress are built. Motivation without discipline is like a flame without fuel. It burns bright for a moment and then dies out. But discipline keeps the fire alive, feeding it with consistency and perseverance until it becomes a force that nothing can extinguish. The greatest difference between those who dream and those who achieve is not talent or inspiration. It is the daily, quiet, unseen practice of discipline that turns intention into transformation. Laziness is the silent thief of potential. It creeps into your life quietly, almost imperceptibly, and yet it robs you of your time, your strength, your purpose, and ultimately your life. It disguises itself as rest, comfort, or leisure, but underneath it is destruction. It whispers lies to your mind, telling you that what you have now is enough, that tomorrow is another day, that small compromises won't matter. And day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment, it erodes the very foundation of your character. Laziness is not merely a habit. It is a spiritual and moral enemy, a force that works actively against every gift, opportunity, and potential that God or life has placed in your hands. Every human being has been given a limited measure of time, energy, and ability. Every day that you waste in idleness is a day that cannot be reclaimed. Laziness tells you to postpone your dreams, to delay your work, to defer responsibility. It presents itself as safety, shielding you from discomfort, effort, or challenge. But in truth, it is a trap. It seduces you with small pleasures today while robbing you of great rewards tomorrow. It convinces you that rest without effort is virtuous and that inactivity is acceptable. It promises ease but delivers regret. The lazy person lives in a cycle of shame and frustration, knowing that they could have done more, could have been more, could have reached further, yet choosing to do nothing. The danger of laziness is not always visible. Sometimes it hides behind busyness that accomplishes nothing. People convince themselves they are active, productive, or working towards something meaningful, when, in reality, they are avoiding the hard, uncomfortable work that actually produces results. Laziness is not always lounging on the couch or procrastinating openly. It is also the subtle choice to do the easy thing, to settle for mediocrity, to stay in your comfort zone. Every time you choose the path of least resistance, you feed the enemy within you. You teach yourself that it is acceptable to squander your abilities and opportunities, and with each passing day, that teaching grows stronger. Laziness is cowardice in disguise. It fears effort, responsibility, and sacrifice. It fears the discipline required to grow, the work required to succeed, the confrontation required to change. It fears accountability because it knows that effort exposes weakness. So it invents excuses, distractions, and rationalizations. It convinces you that you are too tired, too busy, too stressed, or too incapable. And if you do not recognize it, you will obey its lies. Laziness does not ask permission, it commands. And if you follow, it will lead you down a path of irrelevance wasted talent, and unfulfilled potential. Every major success in life requires the opposite of laziness: effort, perseverance, and courage. Laziness cannot coexist with greatness because greatness is born in discomfort, struggle, and consistent labor. The person who achieves remarkable things does not wait for motivation, opportunity, or convenience. They push forward despite fatigue, distraction, and resistance. Laziness whispers, "You deserve to rest now. You can do it later." But the diligent person answers, "No, I will act now because this moment is all I have." Every act of resistance against laziness strengthens character, sharpens focus, and brings results that laziness could never deliver. Consider the wasted potential that laziness produces. How many talents go undeveloped? How many dreams die? How many lives remain ordinary simply because someone refused to act? It is not always failure that kills ambition. It is often inertia. Laziness holds people in place while the world moves forward. Opportunities slip by unnoticed. Strengths remain untested. Ideas remain unrealized. The lazy person convinces themselves that small, incremental actions are insignificant, not realizing that every day they remain idle. The distance between them and success grows, and the gap may never close. Laziness also breeds spiritual decay. When you choose comfort over responsibility, when you avoid effort because it is inconvenient, when you settle for mediocrity because it is easier, your soul hardens. Laziness trains your mind to obey impulse, your body to reject effort, and your spirit to fear challenge. It undermines courage, erodes faith, and replaces conviction with complacency. It is a subtle thief that strips away not only achievements, but also integrity, resilience, and character. Those who succumb to laziness often sense the hollowness within, the gnawing awareness that life is slipping by, and they are doing nothing to claim it. The consequences of laziness are visible in every aspect of life. Relationships deteriorate because effort is required to maintain them. Skills decay because practice is required to grow them. Bodies weaken because training is required to strengthen them. Minds stagnate because learning is required to expand them. Wealth diminishes because work is required to build it. Laziness is the enemy that ensures mediocrity in every field of endeavor. It does not care about your excuses, your reasons, or your potential. It only cares that you surrender to it, and the cost is always higher than you imagine. Laziness is not defeated by hope or desire alone. It is defeated by action. You cannot outthink laziness. You must outrun it. You cannot argue with it. You must oppose it with exertion. Every step taken in resistance to laziness, every disciplined action, every difficult choice, diminishes its hold over you. The lazy man may plan, dream, and fantasize endlessly, but without action, those dreams remain illusions. Laziness thrives on inaction. It gains strength from hesitation. It feeds on procrastination. Every moment spent in idleness is a victory for the enemy, and every moment spent in purposeful labor is a victory for you. Laziness disguises itself as reasonable choices. Rest now, you'll work later. It says, relax, enjoy the moment. It whispers, it's too hard to start today. And if you listen, the consequences are slow but inevitable. Lost time, missed opportunities, undeveloped skills, weak character, and a lifetime of what might have been. Laziness is seductive because it is comfortable, and human nature is drawn to comfort. But comfort without effort is destruction. Every inch you give to laziness is an inch lost from your potential, and those inches accumulate until the life you imagined is far out of reach. The enemy of laziness also works by comparison. It tells you to measure yourself against others and then justify your inactivity. I'm not as talented. I don't have the time. It's too late for me. And so, the lazy mind excuses itself from responsibility and growth. But laziness is blind to truth. It only wants stagnation. It does not care about excuses. It cares only that you yield. Every person who achieves greatness begins by rejecting the lies of laziness and committing to work regardless of circumstance. They refuse to be slaves to comfort or indulgence. They recognize the enemy and confront it daily. Laziness can be subtle in its strategy. It encourages multitasking that achieves nothing, distractions that seem necessary, small indulgences that sap focus, and habits that eat away at willpower. Every small act of acquiescence compounds over time, building a life that lacks meaning, strength, or accomplishment. It is often quiet, invisible, and polite in its deception. You may think you are taking a deserved break, just relaxing, or allowing yourself time. But if these acts are habitual and displace work, growth, or responsibility, they are laziness in disguise. To combat laziness, you must cultivate a relentless refusal to yield to comfort. You must embrace discomfort, risk, and exertion as allies rather than enemies. You must confront the excuses that arise in your mind, recognizing them for what they are, lies designed to keep you stagnant. You must develop habits of consistency and discipline, building momentum so that laziness no longer has the power to stop you. Every task completed in the face of resistance is a victory. Every small step forward is a brick in the foundation of a life lived with purpose. One of the most deceptive qualities of laziness is its ability to disguise failure as rest. The lazy person convinces themselves that inactivity is preservation, that delay is prudence, that waiting is wisdom. But life does not pause for anyone. Time marches forward, opportunities vanish, and those who remain idle find themselves left behind. Every day you fail to act is a day lost forever. Laziness does not care if you are talented, intelligent, or capable. If you do nothing, it will ensure that nothing happens. Laziness also attacks vision. Dreams are killed slowly, often not by outright failure, but by neglect. The lazy person allows opportunity to pass without effort, talent to remain undeveloped, and passion to be suppressed by comfort. They live in the illusion that they can reclaim lost time, not realizing that wasted years are impossible to recover. Laziness is not just a physical state. It is a mental and spiritual condition that eats away at hope, ambition, and courage. It creates fear of effort, distrust in one's own abilities, and resentment toward those who act. Every major achievement in life has been won by people who refused to give in to laziness. They understood that every moment is a gift, and that time is too precious to waste. They worked when it was hard, persisted when it was painful, and sacrificed comfort for growth. They did not rely on luck, talent, or ease. They relied on effort, perseverance, and refusal to surrender to inactivity. Laziness is the great equalizer, but discipline and persistence are the antidote. Those who conquer it live differently than the rest. They live intentionally, courageously, and fully. Laziness will always try to rationalize itself. It will appeal to your fears, your insecurities, your desire for pleasure. It will make you think that delay is safety, that rest is wisdom, that inaction is harmless. But every act of idleness carries a cost. Every choice to avoid effort is a choice to diminish your future. Every surrendered moment is a brick added to the wall that separates you from your potential. Laziness is patient, cunning, and persistent, but it is not invincible. It can be resisted, confronted, and overcome, but only through vigilance, effort, and relentless pursuit of purpose. The cure for laziness is action, not inspiration, not motivation, not waiting for the right feeling, but deliberate, consistent, and purposeful action. You must train yourself to act even when it is difficult, to pursue goals even when progress is slow, to resist comfort even when it is tempting. You must develop habits that do not depend on desire, but on will. You must see laziness for what it is, an enemy, not a friend. You must confront it every day, in every decision, in every moment, and refuse to surrender. Laziness is your greatest enemy because it attacks everything that is meaningful. It destroys health, wealth, skill, relationships, faith, and character. It turns potential into regret, opportunity into loss, and time into emptiness. Every great life has been built on the refusal to yield to laziness, the commitment to labor, and the courage to persist when comfort beckons. To ignore it is to invite defeat, but to confront it is to embrace life with strength, purpose, and freedom. Laziness is not defeated in grand gestures, but in the small, daily acts of obedience and effort. Every time you choose work over ease, action over delay, responsibility over avoidance, you strike a blow against this enemy. You cultivate resilience, build momentum, strengthen character, and move closer to the life you were meant to live. The battle is not easy, and it is fought quietly, internally, and relentlessly, but it is winnable, and the victory is life itself, a life of purpose, achievement, and fulfillment that laziness could never allow you to reach.